Hey guys, Kev here, and I have a full review to do for you. This is the Fanatic Edge Omen version 2. Really cool knife. This was produced by Riot for Fanatic Edge. This is a collaboration knife. We'll get into all that, and this was sent to me to review by Fanatic Edge, so big shout out to them. I am going to be passing this around to a few channels, as I like to do, so you may see it on some other channels. First, I want to talk about the package. It comes in this Fanatic Edge, established 2016 pouch. This is made by Dragon Cut Design, which is pretty cool. You open that up, and you got some cloth inside, and your knife is sitting in there for you, and then it buttons shut. So instead of getting a zipper pouch or something like that, you get this pouch instead, which is unique and different, made in America. Excuse me, pretty cool stuff. Then you have the knife. Now this knife is completely different than most knives out there, and it is super unique. Now the funny thing is, until about a week ago, I did not know this was a collaboration. I always assumed this was a Fanatic Edge design, and I thought it was designed by Mac over at Fanatic Edge. I think his name is Andrew, but he goes by Mac. He's a good dude. I've talked to him a bunch of times on Instagram, and I've seen him at Blade Show now 2 years in a row. Just very nice people, very good company. I really enjoy them. They do fantastic work. So big shout out to Fanatic Edge. If you guys ever need some knives modded or anything, you should definitely check them out. I've had them do a couple of Chavez knives for me, which are no longer with me, but I do have a recent acquisition, my Fanatic Edge Jaeger M. This is version 2 Jaeger M with golf putter milling, and it's got that blue anodized accents. I added a Mokutai backspacer and clip, which I think sets this knife off. Absolute beauty. Just phenomenal knife right there from Fanatic Edge. So really sick stuff. They do amazing work, guys. If you need anything Cerakoted, anodized, you know, if you want to chop something, you want to do studs instead of a flipper, you know, whatever, that kind of stuff. The work I've had done by them is on Chavez. I've had a couple with G10 scales, and they did frag pattern and then Cerakoting all the hardware blue, and man, and then Cerakoting the lock side to this color. Just looks amazing. If you guys haven't seen my Chavez 229 or Scapegoat videos, go check those out. You could probably just search Fanatic Edge on my channel. But anyway, this is the Omen V2, and this is an in-house design, but it's a collaboration with Elijah Isham, which is interesting because, again, I did not know that. Once somebody told me that, I was like, oh, duh, it looks like an Isham, right? So there you go. That's kind of interesting. Now, of course, rest in peace, Elijah Isham. He's no longer with us, and you guys can think whatever you want. I know there's some controversy about his death, but in my mind, rest in peace, and I hope his family is doing well, and everybody in the community that is mourning him, my thoughts are with you. I hope and wish you guys well. So anyway, Elijah Isham did design this knife, which is cool and interesting and makes sense because of how thin the handle is, and then you have that really good looking blade, and of course the flipper tab being controversially pokey and stuff like that, where I think Elijah, one of his hallmarks, for me at least, is he always put how would I put it? I think he always put form over function. Like the flipper tabs and the ergonomics and things like that, they always looked better than they functioned, if that makes sense. And that's a designer's choice, right? And there's collectors out there that love Isham designs, and maybe they're more of collectors and not users, and that makes sense, right? So there's a place for all that, but yeah, anyway, those aspects are here. So let's get into it. Thank you to Fanatic Edge for sending this in. And here we go. Aesthetically, I think it is absolutely gorgeous. I've always thought this was a really cool design. You guys know I love a Tanto blade. Now, I don't love a recurve because it's hard to sharpen, which I don't do anyway. So from now on, I don't really care about recurves because of that. It's mostly aesthetic that I don't usually like them. But in this case, I absolutely love it. This thing is sexy as hell. It has the compound grind I love from a knife like Chavez. You have that really nice hollow grind back here and a flat up here. Again, this is OEM by Riot Knives out of China. You have that two-way belt satin. So you have vertical belt down here, 45-degree belt over here, and then you have horizontal over here. Sorry, I'm an idiot. So it's almost like a four-way satin, honestly, and then you have a different angle here. So really, really cool stuff. You have this nice little divot in the spine right there. I don't know if you see that. Nice little divot, almost like a poon spoon there for you. And then it comes out with a swedge at the top here out to the tip, which is really unique and cool. And man, with that Tanto, it just really looks badass, right? One blade that's a little bit similar looking that I have is the J-Cape blade. You can see there you have that compound grind with the hollow and the flat and the quadruple swedging going on, whatever you want to call all this. Very similar, just one's a drop point, one's a Tanto, but they are similar. There's jimping on the J-Cape, not on that. And there's a size comparison for you. This is the mini J-Cape. So there's the mini J-Cape for you. We can compare it to the Jaeger since I pulled that out earlier. Put that down here, and you can see it is bigger than the Jaeger. I think we're looking at like 3.6 inches on the blade, something like that. Let's grab the Evo 2.0 for a reference here. Nope, it's bigger than the 2.0. Ouch. Let's try our Craig Brown Knives FSD. So the FSD is a bit bigger than it, so I don't know where we're sitting there. It must be around 3.6 or something like that. Let's see if the gripper here matches up well with it. Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good comparison, but look how much handle you have on the gripper. Blade length wise, man, I can't find anything here. All right, let's just measure it then, huh? Idiot. Oh, you know what? Let's try this one. Hogue RSK Ritter. Oh, yeah, look at that. Almost identical. So maybe a little bit longer in the handle on the Ritter, which I believe is about 8 inches overall. But the blades are about the same. So very similar right there on the Ritter Hogue. So I think that's enough size comparisons for you. You can always look the specs up on the website, right? But anyway, yeah, you have that cool blade shape, and then on the handle you have this really nice starburst pattern with that, I believe this is Cerakote, but it could be DLC from factory, I'm not sure. Really cool anodization on all of the hardware, which looks really cool. One thing that throws it off for me is all these screws in a row right here. You have the 2 clip screws and a body screw, and then another body screw there for the backspacer. It's just a little too much screwage going on there, right? And then you got like nothing else all the way up the handle until the pivot. It's very odd to me. On this side, you just have the 2, which is fine. I don't know. This is just a little bit much for me, and I think it stands out really well on this one because of the colors of everything, right? You have that clip that has a little bit of a curve to it. It does work fairly well. We'll talk about that in carry. And then you have this flipper tab that's rounded out and very pokey at the end. And then it kind of becomes a finger guard down here, right? And that's something Elijah Isham really liked. And then the handle, you can see, has this really crazy swell here, straight back down, a little bit of a swell, more of a swell. Like, it's just a crazy handle, sort of a flat right here. The flipper tab sticks out a little bit, but it basically becomes a finger choil here. So talking about ergonomics, in this back grip, it is very skinny, right? The handle is very thin this way. It's pretty average, I'd say, this way. It's probably about half an inch, maybe a little bit more. And in this grip, it actually works pretty well. Now, I wouldn't want to sit there and use this all day or anything, but it's fairly comfortable. I mean, you know, I can spread out a little bit with my large glove size hand, and I'm okay. Like, I could do stuff with it. And then if I need to choke up like this, I can. I'm not right up on the edge. This part, I think, is not sharpened. I haven't felt poked at all or anything like that, so I can climb up like this if I want to do anything like this, which I probably wouldn't. And then if I need to get into a pinch grip, I can climb up like this. Now I did getting into cutting, I did cut some shipping labels and a little bit of opened some packages, and I think I cut one piece of like cardboard just to check that. And for the shipping labels, I went up into this grip and I tried to use that secondary tip right there to cut through the labels. And it did work, but you're only going to go about one label at a time, right? Because you're just not getting a lot of penetration with that tip. So then I tried to climb up into this tip, and it just took a lot of effort to get up here and get to use that tip properly. So it wasn't the best for my shipping label tests, which is something I really, really enjoy, right? It's one of the biggest tasks for me, biggest indicator of how it works as a utility knife, right? A nice low tip of some sort. And it just doesn't ergonomically or blade shape-wise make sense for that application, right? I will say, again, going back to ergos, if you're in this choil grip, you can land your thumb right into the poon spoon. And this is really comfortable if you want to get some cutting done. Again, talking about cutting, I think this is going to be your very light EDC knife. This is not even going to be like a light use knife or anything. This is going to be a for show knife mostly, and it can do some EDC tasks, of course. You know what I mean? But this is not a knife I would rely on for anything, really. And I don't think it's meant to do that, right? It's a $340 knife starting, and it's an Elijah Isham design. And for the most part, that means it's a sort of a collector knife, right? Which is fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. This is an LMAX steel, which is really cool to see LMAX. Riot has been using LMAX a lot lately, so I'm sure it was an option when they were ordering, and it's pretty cool to see that. I don't know the heat treat or anything like that, so. But anyway, cutting I think is fine, but it's not going to be, you know, I normally say it's going to be great for EDC, right? It'll be fine for that, but you might not want to use it for hard use. That's my normal spiel, right? This one is like borderline EDC, right? It's not even quite there because of the ergonomics and the blade shape and everything. I think it's just more of a show knife, but it can do some things, of course. Carry is a little bit awkward. It's not super heavy, but it has some weight to it, but it's super thin, so it's not a huge deal. There's no weight relief in there, but it doesn't really need it for being such a thin knife. And then you have this clip here, which works pretty good in my opinion. It slides in pocket pretty good. It does have a little bit of grip. You gotta, you know, yank it out a little bit, but that's kind of how it works with these 3D milled clips, where there's, you know, the relief cut here, and they have a little bit of a pokey John right there, whatever you want to call that retention point. You don't have a ton sticking out, but you know, you got a good bit sticking out, which is, to me, I've kind of gotten over that as of late. It's something to grab and yank the knife out with. But it didn't like lean or cause any issues with the weird shape. I thought it might, you know, with the flipper tab and everything. But I carried this back left pocket like this, and I had no problems just yanking it out of pocket like that. Flipper tab didn't, you know, get deployed or anything weird. It was fine. So I'd say carry is as expected for a knife that looks like this, right? Again, Isham. Sounds. So the sounds on this guy are okay. So let me get a sip of my raspberry lime Spindrift. My finger hurts, by the way, from flipping it. But my finger was already feeling raw because I was doing the review on this guy, and that jimping really grips. The sounds are muffled in some way. They're just not like super loud. The detent is not very strong. I will say when we get to action in a second, it's fine. It's dialed perfectly, honestly, for this knife, but it's not a strong detent, so you don't get a ton of pop and you don't get a ton of click on the way in, but it's not bad. So I'd give it like a 5 out of 10, which is fine. It's just average, right? As long as it's not below that, it's not like a negative to me. It's just, it is what it is. It just sounds, you know? So action slash fidget factor on this guy is interesting. You can reverse flick it if you want to. You just have to get the right spot on the blade and kind of whip it out. There you go. You can do it. It's not the funnest move. It's not really even meant to be flicked, I don't think, but you can do it. So if you're one of those people who has to spidey flick knives, you can. You could easily probably have somebody add studs or cut in a hole or something. I don't know how studs would work on this knife because, you know, you'd obviously have to get them to go around. You'd have to, I don't know, be an interesting thing putting studs on this knife because of the way the handle is shaped, right? The flipper is the main deployment here, and the detent is dialed for the flipper, and they made sure on this, I could tell, they made sure the detent was not too strong, because if the detent was stronger on this, it would hurt like a son of a bitch, because of this flipper tab that is pokey. You see how pokey that is? Now, they did take this sort of corner off here, but it still has a point, and you're literally driving that point into your finger when you flip it. But again, you get good leverage, and the detent is dialed enough that you can flip it out every time. You're not going to feel it. Now, can I feel it? Sure, I can feel it. Let's see. See, I can feel it. Right-handed. Okay, so that's me trying, but if you just flick it, it comes out well. It comes out with authority, right? So I think the detent is dialed for this knife perfectly, because stronger and it would hurt, weaker and it would just feel weak, right? So I think it's good, but you have that pokey flipper tab, which just kind of sucks. I mean, you can see it digging into my finger there over and over. Disengaging this knife is very comfortable. You have a good chamfer there. You can go pretty low on the lock bar, like wherever you want to go on it. It's not a guillotine, but again, I think it's a good balance because it's a nice smooth shake shut. Again, it's a Riot, so it's going to be very smooth and just glide shut. If I wanted to take it apart, put skips, tune the, you know, I could probably get this thing to drop shut. It's very tight right now. No slip, no rock, none of that stuff. So, you know, this is with it super tight. I'm guessing you could get this to drop shut very easily with a disassembly. But I honestly don't want to do that. I like how it is because I don't want it to take my thumb off or anything. I'm trying to get my thumbs back, right? So I think the action's really good on this. Very satisfying. It's good. Now it is flipper only. Again, I said you could reverse flick it, but I wouldn't count that. I mean, I'm sure I could thumb flick it too. But, like, I'm not counting those as deployment methods because it's not something I would go to. I'm going to be doing this, right? And you can light switch it. You can try to get up on top of that so you don't get poked and do that, sure. But it's kind of awkward. And you can try to push button if you want. You know, you can do different things, whatever you want to do. With Ishams, you know, you can try to get up there and drag down like that. I tend to just go for the flipper tab, but I will say carrying this knife, it did fatigue me after a while and I had to just put it away. But it's a cool knife. I really like it. It's another Isham type knife like the Arrakis where it's just one of those knives that like you look at it and the design is unique as hell. It's super cool, looks badass, and it's built extremely well. So it's a good knife, guys. It's really cool, but it's not going to be the most functional knife, right? It might not be the knife that you fidget with all day either because of, you know, that flipper tab. So there are thumb stud versions of this knife available. I believe there's multiple versions of this up on their website right now, and you can also have them mod it however you want. So if you want something different, they can do it. So if you like this design, I can tell you it's a good knife. Made really well and all that good stuff. Action's really good. So it comes down to the aesthetic for you, I think, and the type of person you are. If you're a collector, I think this knife is for you. If you're a hard user and every knife has to be able to chop a horse down if you need to, don't buy this knife. You're just gonna disappoint yourself. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I would leave it on this one as I freaking stab into my table. More worried about the table. Don't worry, it's just vinyl. There's nothing wrong with the knife. Yeah, really cool knife. I can recommend it to those of you who are collector level first, you know. So let me know what you think. Big shout out to Fanatic Edge for sending this in. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'm going to start sending this around, and we'll get some other people's thoughts. So, yeah, I love you guys. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will catch you later.